Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is one of the videos that I know you guys look forward to every year and I look forward to making, and that is my favorite and least favorite couples of 2019. So I will be discussing all the couples that I read about in books this year. That includes the couples in the middle. Initially, I wasn't sure if I was going to, but I asked on Instagram, and while a lot of you said to just do my favorite and least favorite couples, many of you DM'd me and requested that I do a quick run through of all the mediocre couples and not really talk about them because I can't remember most things about them if they're that mediocre. So that's what I'm going to do. So you're going to get to hear about, in some form or fashion, all of the couples. This is gonna be a long video. That's why I'm sitting in it. Let's get into it. So as I always mention in these videos, this video is about couples, so there will potentially be spoilers. So if you watch this video and then comment about being spoiled for something, I will delete your comment and not care, because this video is about couples. It's going to spoil who gets together or who has tension or whatever. So I'm not gonna be spoiling things about the book or plot points about books. But romantic stuff about the books, it's gonna be in this video. So I don't wanna hear any whining if you continue to watch this and get spoiled for something that you don't want to hear about a couple, because it's a video about couples. Let's get into it. I am going to start with my least favorite couples and work my way up to favorite. So you will have the most emotions at the beginning and the end of this video. So my least favorite couple of 2019 is Kazi and Jace from Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. When I was going over my list, because I always write out every single couple and then kind of do like rank them from there and put stars by certain ones or whatever. This one, although this isn't like the worst book, although it's on my disappointed list, but like it's still Mary E. Pearson, it's still like good writing. I think the reason it makes me so angry is because it disappointed me so much. Like, I love the Remnant Chronicles, and they're some of my continued OTPs in that series. They made the top list in this video for like 2016, 2015, and then this happened and I was like, how dare you? I'm so angry about it. This is a very insta-love, insta-attraction thing. That could have been a very slow burn, enemies to friends to lovers. These two had no reason to trust each other or really like each other, and they started having like intimate physical romantic contact within like the first, I think 70 pages of the book, which I'm like, nah, like I'm all for like lust and whatever, but they were in this situation where like this shouldn't have happened, and it could have happened better, and I trusted her to make it better. The plot also revolved around just doing things so that the couple would be pushed together or pushed apart, miscommunication, and I hated that because I loved the plot in the Remnant Chronicles, and I thought that the relationships and the plot really complemented one another. With this, it just felt like it was all just about the couple, and I'm like, I hate you guys. So yeah, oh my god, I hated it. Were they like abusive or horrible, or like other past couples that I've hated, like Travis Maddox, and I remember his name because it just sticks in your brain. No. They just really annoyed me. Then we have Pablo and Leanna from Permanent Record. These two I disliked mostly because I think we didn't really even get to see enough of their relationship, and then Pablo just treated her like a manic pixie dream girl. She does not get her own POV in this story, you just follow Pablo. I think this would have benefited from us actually knowing about her, because I think her story would have been so much more interesting, but we just get it boiled down into what like Pablo thinks of her, and not like, she doesn't feel like a real person. And I know that's kind of the point, and that's kind of how Pablo views her, but I'm just like, wow, this is shitty. And I don't get it. Like, I kind of get that maybe she wanted this like escapism with him, and because she's this like superstar, like pop star, and he's this NYU dropout that's working at this bodega, and they just happen to meet. I just don't quite buy it. And I didn't like their relationship, and it wasn't fun. It didn't give me any like warm fuzzy feelings. It just made me feel like bleh about it. Then we have Mia and Jules from Unearthed by Amy Kaufman and Megan Spooner. These two are, again, supposed to be not quite like enemies, but they shouldn't have formed a bond as quickly as they did. It was one of those really annoying situations that happened a lot in like 2013 YA, where it's like, as soon as this couple gets together in this like sort of dystopian, this is like a space story, sort of like a space Tomb Raider, but not enough, because that's what I wanted it for. And as soon as they get together, you know, they're just like, that person's so hot. like all they can think about, and I get it, like I get teenagers like are always looking for hot people, I understand, but like it's just they were in these like life or death situations, and it was just that very like classic YA trope of like, that person's so hot, oh my god, their eyes, like there was a lot of focus on like eye color, and I'm like, am I reading fan fiction? Like I just And then the story really didn't make up for it either, so. Then we had Asha and Reese from Obsidio, and really all the couples, because the couples from the first two books are also in here as well. This could have been great, but obviously it wasn't. So I just didn't really care about this couple, although it does have the whole, like, they have a past kind of dynamic that I tend to like and tends to be easier to do well. I just didn't feel it with this. I loved the couple in Illuminae, the original couple. Didn't like the couple in Gemina, didn't like the couple in here, just was not connected. And then in like retrospect now, having read this book, like I still love Illuminae, but like I didn't even like that original couple that was present in this book anymore. Like everyone was annoying. Everyone was annoying. A lot of the same things kept happening to like this couple that had happened to previous couples, and I'm like, we've already done this plot point. I mentioned that as a plot thing for Obsidio in my most disappointing reads of the year, so I already touched on this, but this, it affects so much, including the relationship, because it's just like, wow, this couple's going through some of the same exact plot points that some of the other couples have. Cool. Then we have Peter and Bee from the book of Strange New Things. This sucked because I didn't really like, I bought the relationship at the beginning. Peter is a missionary that's being sent into space, and they are both evangelical Christians. And so I got the relationship at the beginning, but he is such a bad husband. Like he's sort of, like you sort of learn throughout the story that he only really feels close to her when he's like near her. Like he's somebody that has to be like, have you in front of his face to like care. And so it just like makes their relationship dynamic like really awful and unlikable. And they both just kind of like, you only really get to see their relationship through email because they're sending messages back and forth, and you get some flashbacks and stuff, but other than that, like not a lot. I'm just kind of like, this sucks. And she did so much for him. Like you see all the stuff in the flashbacks and you're just like, wow, this woman has done so much for you. And it's like you don't even care. There's also, it's not clear whether he cheats on her or not because he has like this fever dream and I think he cheats on her with somebody on the base, and it's just like, I can't, because she like did so much and literally molded him into a better man, and then he's like, bye, going to space, and then like forgets about her. And I'm like, and she's basically having a mental breakdown like back on Earth, and he's like, don't care, gonna go do my missionary stuff with the aliens. Which the whole point kind of the story is that he's being shitty. Their narration does display that, but I'm just like, this is so awful. And that's just like the literary fiction thing that I talked about where it's like, why is everything awful? And he was awful to her and I don't like it. Then we have Vanessa and Aiden from The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. I talked about this in my review, but this book is described as a slow burn, but it's not even a slow burn because there's no embers, warmth, anything until the last like 10% of the book. Like there's no like banter, closeness, anything that would make you think that he likes her. Like he's the stoic football man who just like doesn't feel things, and he says that like he's like, I am just this way, and it's like, but no, you need to put effort in and you need to try, and you don't. So although I read this like 600-page romance book and plan on reading more by this author at some point when I want to read like a 600-page just like fluff thing with like sort of slow burn, I don't know, I'm not opposed to reading this author, but I'm also still like not over the fact that like this book wasn't that good. So I just like didn't like them. Like I didn't feel the fuzzy feelings about them. Like there was so little connection between them and the times were so spaced out that I didn't even buy it. And I just don't know why she, like, I don't get why she cared about him when he's like not nice to her. Like he was never, there were times that he was like kind of like a curmudgeon-y asshole, but like he was never malicious to her, but by omission, he was mean to her. And I don't like it. Then we have Fitz and Molly from Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. This is the second book in the series, so now Fitz is a teenager and Molly is slightly older than him, which is another thing that I'd like forgotten because it's been a while since I read Assassin's Apprentice. But I just don't like their vibe. They don't like make me, I mean, they kind of make me annoyed. I get really annoyed with her and then I get annoyed with myself for being annoyed because I'm like, am I being internally like misogynistic? But I just don't think they're a very good match for one another. And she gets like really pissy at him and treats him poorly and like for reasons that aren't really his fault. Like I just am so defensive of Fitz now. Like I really grew to love him in this book. And I'm just like, you're being mean to him, and she's being like, she gets very like passive aggressive and like doesn't communicate with him. And she's supposed to be older and like slightly more mature and slightly more like worldly and things, like she's not from like anything royal or whatever. And so I'm like, I want you to be a little more mature about this, and you're not. And I get that like not everybody is. I just don't feel like they're a very good match. And I just don't get why he loves her so much. Like I sort of get that she's a part of his childhood because you see that in the first book and how they met and like how he had this crush on her. But it's just like this whole kind of like lack of communication, and she's like, well, you should have known that I loved you this whole time. And I don't like it. And I just want him to be with someone else. I don't know who that is. There's no character that has presented themselves, but I just don't feel like they're a good match. And also like in the world, they're kind of not a good match because they really make a point to say that like because of who he is as like the assassin and the jobs that he has and how he's always going to kind of be in danger with where he sits in like the royalty and everything, that she's never going to like be okay, not in danger, all this stuff, which is kind of also true for like any woman that he's with. But I just feel like he needs someone else, like, and I don't know who that person is or like what their personality is like, but it's just not Molly. Then we have Lucy and Josh from The Hating Game, which I know people are gonna be like, what? But maybe not, because you've probably seen my review of it. But these two are this like enemies to lovers office romance thing that I also like just didn't buy, because again, they get too physical like way too quick. Again, I get the lust thing. I get that some people overlook personalities and someone being horrible to you if they're hot. I guess I get that in some capacity. But like, I just don't understand. Like there's parts of this book where she's like, you make me feel like shit and you've ruined me for other men. And I'm just like, what? Like I don't like it. Like there's some scenes in here, and that's why they're not like the very bottom of the list, that like I enjoyed some of the romance and like everything, but I just didn't want to really see it with them. She's also like super clingy once they start getting together, and it's very kind of like unclear where their like relationship is and like why they're both acting the way they are when they haven't even become like friends at all. Like it's very odd. Like the pacing of their relationship is weird, and so that's why I didn't really like this one. I was expecting to love it, like enemies to lovers, yes please, but like it just didn't feel like enemies to lovers, because this is another situation where like they're hooking up within like the first 50 pages. Like I know they've known each other for a while, they've worked together for a while, but I'm just like, he made you cry and feel like shit and now we're kissing. I don't get it. Then we have Spensa and Jorgen from Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. They are more just because they're like really predictable and just like, I don't really care. I just didn't really care about any of the characters in this story, really. I don't think I'm gonna continue with this series. I keep kind of like going back and forth, like I'm not really sure. But I just was like, okay, she hates that guy. They have banter. She's gonna start seeing something new in him, blah, blah, blah. Which are things that like I enjoy when they're well done. I just didn't feel like it, like I didn't get anything new from this. I just knew the beats it was gonna follow, and those are beats that sometimes I enjoy. Sometimes that's a path I love walking down and smelling all the roses. But with this, I just was like, I don't care about them, and y'all are annoying. So I can't even really remember if they like get together or if they're just moving towards that. Like I might have put them on here as like a couple that's not even really together, but you know they're gonna be. I don't remember. That's why we're getting close to the section of like the mediocre meh. I don't remember any of this. Then we have Nikolai and Zoya from King of Scars. This was a couple that I know some people have shipped for a while and that some people really liked and wrote fan fiction for with the Grisha trilogy. I just never wanted them to be together. I wanted them so desperately to just have a friendship. I never wanted them to be together. Now there's just like romantic tension. I'm just like, I don't want this. By extension, Nina and Hane? I don't know if we've actually figured out how to say her love interest name. They should really be like further down the list, but I'm not going to talk about them later in the forgettable section again. So I'm just gonna talk about them now. Those two were just like completely forgettable. Like I respect that Nina's bisexual and I love seeing bisexual representation. And I also just didn't like them or feel that they had any chemistry really. What I really actually wanted was Nikolai and Nina to be together, because I felt like they actually had chemistry when they showed up in Crooked Kingdom and there was this like sort of flirty banter. So I kind of thought that that was what's going to happen. But then Lee's like, give Nina a girlfriend, and that's like, that's fine. But she can also be bi and be with Nikolai. Like there's a lot of bi discourse around this if you are a part of the bi community at all or see people talk about things. But the whole idea that like bisexual women in particular have to be shown with other women for that bisexuality to be like valid is no. So I mean, not that that's what like Lee was doing. I think that she loves the couple that she's created, but I'm just like, she could be bi and also with Nikolai because she's bi. Like, I would have enjoyed that so much more. It's not gonna happen, but I would have enjoyed that so much more. So it's just a shame because I didn't want the Nikolai Zoya. They just could have been really great close friends, and then like Nina and her girl were just really forgettable, and you had these two that could have been a couple and would be really good. Then we have Zuri and Darius from Pride. These are almost to they're right before the like mediocre forgettable thing. The only reason these two weren't like completely forgettable and why I have them more on the like side is because this is a Pride and Prejudice retelling. This is supposed to be Lizzie and Darcy, and I just found them so like mediocre and bland and blah, which made me more angry because I'm like, you have one of the like ultimate couples that have created so many archetypes and you're forgettable? like how dare you? So while it's not a couple that I'm like angry about for them, it's just like, this was so boring, this was so bland, this could have been better, and you're Lizzie and Darcy. How did it not work? Now we're entering the rapid fire of just couples and books that I found forgettable, since you guys wanted to just know what things you might want to avoid if you are looking for something with a good romance. We have Nina and Leo from Slayer. I don't know why they were into each other. We have Nedra and Gray from Give the Dark My Love. I've forgotten about them. We have Nick and Julia from The River of No Return. I remember them being fine, but again, mostly forgot. I have no opinion. We have Cecile and Tristan from Stolen Songbird. Another forgettable, like I don't remember most of their dynamic. I feel like there's moments that I kind of liked it, but as I mentioned in my disappointing books video, I feel like there's a potential for a love triangle, and I liked her sort of tension with this other dude more than Tristan. And that's what I remember, and I don't remember any of her dynamic with Tristan at all. And the other guy like isn't fully a possibility in this if he's gonna be at all, so I didn't want to include him as like, I liked this one because I don't know if it's even a thing. Then we have Sorsha and Red from Daughter of the Forest by Juliet Marillier. I just read about it, so I haven't forgotten about them, but I know over time I will forget about them because they gave me no feelings whatsoever. And I was actually surprised when they like were like, we love each other, and I'm like, do you? Then we have Anna and DO9 from Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. I remember these slightly more. It's kind of okay, but this is supposed to be a Anastasia retelling, and this is Anastasia, Anna, and then Dimitri, but he's a robot, but like kind of not, like, I just wasn't really quite into it. Then we have Denna and Mare from Of Fire and Stars by Audrey Coulthurst. These two were just fine. The whole plot revolved around their romance, and the plot was for moving along their romance. I just didn't really care about either of them or them together. Then we have Georgiana and whoever her love interest was from Summer of Salt. This was a cute book. I remember like being like cute romance, but like didn't have any feelings. Don't remember the love interest's name. And this is a female-female romance, and I don't remember anything, and I couldn't even find her name like mentioned in reviews and stuff. So it's not really about the romance. It's a very minor point anyway, so just have forgotten about it. Then we have Charlie and Bill from Save the Date. Typically speaking, Morgan Matson's books have more of a focus on the romance, but in this book, there was barely any focus on the romance. There was actually a lot more of Charlie and her former crush, Jesse, who she's figuring out throughout the story is actually a douchebag. So there's more like stuff about them, and Bill is just this guy that like you sort of know like she has potential with in the future kind of thing. So the reason this is down farther is not because they weren't like cute and fine, but just that like it's such a minor part of the story. And I went into this expecting more of a romance because Morgan Matson, and it wasn't, so just heads up to you. Then we have Josh and Hazel from Josh and Hazel's Guide to Not Dating by Christina Lauren. This was a friends to lovers romance, and it was cute and fine, and I like remember it, but I didn't really care about their dynamic. And this actually has a trope that I hate for romance books at the very, very end, which also kind of ruined the romance for me. If you don't want to be spoiled for it, I'm gonna whisper it in a second, so just skip like 2 seconds. It's the accidental pregnancy at the end. Then we're getting into some couples that I remember and like, but still don't care a ton about. We have Cersei and whoever she eventually ends up with in the story from Cersei by Madeline Miller. Cersei has a number of romances within the story, and I remember the feelings of the romances and what they gave me and how like heartbroken I was over some things and whatever, but not the actual men, usually all some member of Greek mythology that she's involved with. So I liked seeing the different types of romances in this, but I wasn't connected to a certain couple here. I was connected to Cersei being happy. It's not really about the romance, but there's talk of how different kinds of love sort of are throughout the story, if you want to read a story kind of like that. Then we have January's Parents from the 10,000 Doors of January by Alex Harrow. January, I think, also has her own romance, but I've forgotten that one. So that's why, again, it's like towards the forgettable side. And I'm forgetting her parents' names, actually. But I remember really liking them and thinking that was a very cute romance, also kind of angsty at times and things. So that was one. But again, one that's not like stuck in my feelings or anything. Then we have Wax and Mirasai from The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. These two, I'm not even sure, they're not like together, but there's feelings there, and I'm enjoying the spark that's there if they do eventually get together, which I think they will. There's just things keeping them apart right now. Then we have Stella and Michael from The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. I really liked them at the beginning of the book, the first half of the book. The second half of the book, I didn't like them as much because there was a lot of miscommunication, and then Michael gets very possessive at the end and actually like hits another guy for like getting close to her or whatever. And like sort of justified because that guy's a skis, but it also has that like really dumb romance trope where it's like any competition is like obviously a skeezy dude, and it was just lame. So I feel like they went downhill in my opinion because they were so good at the beginning, and then like just personality traits that didn't need to happen happened. Then we have Baru and Tane Hugh from the Trader Brew Cormorant by Seth Dickinson. I remember very little about the story, but the only thing I remember is the spark between these two. This is a female-female romance as well, and these two have like a really interesting kind of like push and pull dynamic. Nothing interesting enough for me to like continue the series or anything, but I do remember of what I remember of the story. It's only the scenes with them. Then we have Elma and her husband is all I wrote down because I forgot his name, and really he's only important because he's her husband in my opinion. From The Calculating Stars by Mary Robinette Kowal. These two are both scientists and like mathematicians, and they're all involved with the space program back in the, I think it's supposed to be set in the 50s, I want to say, maybe 60s. And I just really like their like very cute dynamic. There was some cheesy stuff in here because like every time they had sex, they were always doing like space and rocket puns, and it was cute the first time, and then I was like, stop. But otherwise, like they have a really supportive relationship, and like they will have little fights and stuff, but then like talk about it and be like, okay, we're being ridiculous, let's like talk about this. And it was just like very mature married couple that I really liked seeing. Stop it. Then we have Laszlo and Sarai from Muse of Nightmares. Now these two showed up on my like really dislike list last year, I'm pretty sure. Maybe not like super at the bottom, but I just didn't like their romance. I don't like the insta love, all of that. I liked them more in this story, not enough to like necessarily ship them, but I liked their dynamic way more in the second book. I think because it was less about them like falling in insta dream love and just a more like realistic, cute, supportive relationship during times of hardship. So I enjoyed them far more than I did in the past. Now we're getting into the top 16. These are all couples that I would say I ship. We have Nadia and Malachiash from The Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This is an enemies to lovers villain romance that I talked about being disappointing, and it continues to be disappointing, but I do appreciate the aesthetic of these two. I do like, even though I think this was written in a way that kind of felt fan fiction-y in some ways with some of the romance stuff, some of the things that happen in there were things that I like seeing, as far as like, they have like couple moments that I enjoy, like tropes within that. So that's why they're at the bottom of the ship list for this year, but there's still things that I liked. Like at one point, I'm pretty sure she holds him dangling over like a balcony edge, and he's like probably 6'2" and she's like 5'5", and I like that. There's a lot of like chin stuff happening, which again was kind of annoying when I was reading it, but like the art and stuff that comes out for these two, and like just like the aesthetic, which is what this book is so about, is the aesthetic, I like. So again, they're not like an OTP. We haven't gotten to the OTPs yet, but I have a soft spot. I'm willing to let that soft spot develop if future books give me what I want, you know? Then we have Milo and Lucy, also known as Death, from Reincarnation Blues. by Michael Poore. I was pulling for these two. There were times that it was just kind of like awkward because Milo is someone who's being reincarnated over and over, and there are some of his lives where he leads bad lives and like horrible things happen, or he's being a horrible person or whatever. This is basically a Death and the Maiden story where the maiden is really this dude and Death is the maiden, and there's just like a gender flipped Death and the Maiden story. So I enjoy that just on principle, and I did kind of like pull for them. Are they an OTP? No, but I did really enjoy them. Then we have my only love square on the list, and that is Henrietta, Blackwood, Magnus, and Rook from A Poison Dark and Drowning by Jessica Cluess. This is a story that I've talked about before where like it's very dark and twisty, and it takes place in a Victorian London where there's like sorcerers, magicians, and witches, and there's these alternate like eldritch beings that have come from a different dimension that they're fighting. But anyway, Henrietta is the first female sorcerer, so she's like unique and whatever. There's just a lot of like YA tropes that I sometimes hate, but I just eat up in this particular story. So she's all like, you know, new and interesting, so every boy loves her, and I'm totally fine with it. And she has a crush on all of them, and I'm totally fine with it. And what I like about it is that none of the men are like completely the right choice. Like this series is like dark, but like a kind of like fun, like eccentric dark, like more of like a Holly Black kind of vibe, I would say, than like a grim dark kind of thing. But every guy is like not the best choice. I believe I ship her the most with Blackwood because they almost have like a Lizzie Darcy dynamic, but I'm kind of into all of it. I'm kind of into all of it. Then we have the couples from A Wedding in December by Sarah Morgan, but this is Maggie and Nick, who are the parents of the two perspectives of the girls in the story. And Maggie and Nick have been separated for some time, but they haven't told their daughters that they're getting divorced. And then one of the daughters is going to be married. So they're like, we can't go to this wedding and tell everyone that we're getting divorced. So they have to pretend to like be happily married, but in the pretending they like, you know, like fall in love again. Obviously, like, you know that's gonna happen in the synopsis. Again, with romances, that's not a spoiler or anything. So they have a lot of instances of like, they get set up on like these like cute dates. So they have to be like fake dating, but they're like already married, and like they have a lot of those kinds of things. There's only one bed, blah, blah, blah. So that kind of like trope dynamic. Then we have Katie and Jordan, and Katie is the daughter of Maggie and Nick, the other one that's not getting married. And she is somebody who has always been like really independent and doesn't believe in love, one of those. And she meets Jordan. They have this like instant bantery, bickering kind of connection, and they see the other one for who they are, and they're able to kind of like get to the truth of each other. And it is this like sort of like enemies to lovers dynamic. So two of my like favorite kinds of dynamics and tropes in the same book with two different couples. It was great. Then we have Mia and Trick from Nevernight by Jay Kristoff. These were the two that I didn't think I was initially gonna be into. And then when they started like hooking up, I was like, this is kind of hot. Like, again, they're not OTP level. I'm not devastated by anything that happens with them, but I definitely was like, I like this way more than I thought I was going to. And like the scenes with them are very well written. Then we have Kettle and Apple from Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence. These are two side characters I've talked about before in the past that I love their relationship. I also really love Ara and Nona, who Nona is the main character in the story, and they have a relationship that's budding that really is never quite solidified. But Kettle and Apple are a canon together through the whole series couple, and they have like a shadow bond to each other, which is a part of the like the magic and stuff, so they can call to each other from great distances. And I just really love them. These are two magical warrior nuns in love, and I adore them. Then we have Zachary and Dorian from The Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. These are two that are interesting because there is a age gap. So Dorian's a little bit older than Zachary, but they're both adults, and Zachary's like very firmly in, I would say, is mid-20s, I think, I forget. But these are two that I wasn't even sure I was gonna like either, and then they really grew on me. Erin Morgenstern does such a great job, and I've always mentioned this in the videos talking about her, of really depicting relationships in just a small amount of time. Like, you just buy it and believe it, even when you're not getting them together a ton. There's a number of other couples in here as well that I don't really want to get into for sort of like spoilers, but all of the couples and myths and things in here, please know that I ship all of it. Okay, can't get into it, but please know that I ship all of it. But Zachary and Dorian are definitely part of that mix that I ship a lot. Okay, this is the top 9. I actually have 9 favorite couples this year, like favorites, cream of the crop couples that gave me feelings that are actually very hard to rank. Like I have them ranked and these are roughly my feelings, but like these are couples that are kind of constantly in movement, and like if I read another book in the series, like they'll be moving around a bit, and I just have feelings about all of them. I've cried about multiple couples. They all gave me like feelings in my chest and butterflies and chills at some point, and I just adore all of them. I would say like the top 5, I mean, really all of these have given me emotions. I was gonna say like the top 5 are like solidly like for sure my favorites, but I have a top 9, which is crazy because before I made this list, I wouldn't have thought that I had like this great shipping year, but I discovered that I think it's because I haven't been on Tumblr. So in my past, when I've been like really into ships, I've been on Tumblr a lot, and I really haven't this year because I've stayed off it for like spoilers of different things that I didn't see right when they came out and things like that. So I just got out of the habit of being on Tumblr, but I realized that I engage with fandom mostly through shipping and through like seeing gift sets and photo sets and things of my favorite couples and books and things. So the fact that I haven't had that made me feel like I didn't love anything as much as I have in the past, but it's just because I couldn't pursue like tags on Tumblr for fear of being spoiled for other things. So that's why, but like I have 9 favorite couples on this list, so let's get into it. First we have Lori and Jack from One Day in December by Josie Silver. I recently did a full video on this, so I will link that on the screen. I encourage you to check it out because there's a number of things about this couple that people aren't gonna like. I don't necessarily like love Jack as like a book boyfriend or anything, but I loved this couple and was so emotional, cried over them, like felt feelings in like the pit of my stomach if something happened to them and they had something like happen, a miscommunication or whatever. Like I just felt so many feelings over the 2 days that I read this book. So they are on the list and will be on the list, and I desperately hope that they make a movie out of this because I think it'd make a really good movie and I would like to see them on screen. Then we have Seda and Emra from 12 Kings and Shirakai by Bradley Baleo. These are 2 characters who have been friends their entire lives, and I don't typically love the friends to lovers, but I think because this is angsty, I like it. So they've been friends their whole lives. They're adults now. This is in a grimdark desert fantasy world. They have, you learn at the very beginning, there's hints that they hooked up some time ago. And they both like each other because you get both of their perspectives, but no one's talking about it. And they hooked up and both of them think like the other one didn't care about it. And it's been like years and they have this like deep bond where you can tell they both like deeply love each other, and they just like aren't being together, and it hurts me. So I highly enjoy, but like nothing, I mean, they're both each other's like weakness. Like I just love them. So I'm nervous for both of them because I feel like they're going on separate paths throughout the story, but I think they will be kind of each other's constant, hopefully, and I'm nervous for them, but I hope it all works out. Then we have Jude and Carden from The Wicked King by Holly Black. I have not yet read Queen of Nothing. So I didn't really like them in the first book. I was not a huge fan of Cruel Prince, but man, did I like a lot of things in this book. I've mentioned before in my review and stuff that I like how toxic everyone is in this book, and that there is no alternative for Jude. It's not like anyone can read this and be like, oh my gosh, I wish you went for the nice bakery boy. It's like, no, there's nobody else. Everyone's awful. And they just have this like hate to love dynamic. She is sort of stupid sometimes and doesn't see that he like obviously cares about her, but he's also a jerk. So like this dynamic, if you guys have read it, which most of you probably have, you understand that it's like, it's very toxic, it's very problematic, and I'm okay with it in this context. They're in fairy, everyone is bad. There's a lot of just like angsty enemies to lovers scenes of like, kiss me until I'm sick of it, tell me you hate me again. Like, it's just, again, I don't want this. I hate that I have to disclaim this because I feel like people assume that if you ship something like that, you want that for yourself. I don't want this. I don't want someone to be mean to me. I don't want to hate the person I'm making out with, but it's hot. I'm okay with it. And just like the toxic twistedness of this particular world, it just works really well. There's so few scenes between them, but the ones that you get are just like so good. They're really good. Then at number 6, I know I really haven't like been ranking these, but I just want to let you know where we are on the list. Number 6, we have Cyril and Aristide from Amberlow by Laura Elena Donnelly. These two snuck up on me. I was not expecting to love them so much. This is a male-male romance. These two are on separate sides kind of this criminal underbelly, but throughout the times of like sort of spying on each other, they're now in love and they have a romantic, very like tumultuous romantic and sexual relationship. I think at the start both of them think it's just sexual, but it's not. They both love each other. And they do some shitty things to one another sometimes because they're in this the middle of this like very dramatic political coup that's happening in a setting that is sort of like 1920s, 1930s-ish Art Deco punk world, and there's just a lot of like noir type stuff going on. So there's a lot for them. And like Aristide in particular will like get back at Cyril by like sleeping with other people, but that's kind of what happens in this world. Like a lot of people are like not monogamous. So they're just, and they're not necessarily like together because they can't really be together. It's just very angsty. There's a lot of feelings and I love them and pull for them, and I don't know. Ugh. I've read the second book in the series, that's why I'm making that face. Then at number 5, we have Vassia and Morosco from The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. This is the second book in the Winter Night trilogy, and I read this book at the beginning of the year, but I still remember there being feelings. I just love these two. So this is sort of like a Hades, Persephone, Death and the Maiden type thing. Morosco is like a magical frost entity and he's becoming more human by being in love with her. And she's this like magical woman and has grown up with like one foot in the human world and one foot in the like Slavic Fae world, and it's so good. And some of the lines about them, because they're not really fully together in this, and I think they will be in the very last book, but I don't know, and I hope they will, and I just want it to be so good. There's just like very few moments of them together, but the moments that we have are just like very like tender and wonderful, and they remind me kind of the dragon and Agnieszka from Uprooted, but like slightly more, and I want them to be happy, but I don't know if they will be. Then at number 4, we have Olive and Ethan from The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This was the romance book that started it all for me and the first one that I read and loved, and I felt so giddy with this couple. I was so like head over heels for them. I like squealed and kicked my feet and just shipped everything with them. This is a enemies to lovers, bantery romance. These two are each other's nemesis, and then they have to go on this honeymoon and they have to be fake married, and they are in all these situations like romantic honeymoon situations. There's only one bed. There's cute drunken confessions of love. The situation that made them enemies is really just a miscommunication that's done really well, so no one's actually an asshole. It's so good and will be a book that I will reread over and over, and they're just so adorable. Another book that I really want to be a movie because I'm just like, I want to see you guys be cute on screen. Then we have the top 3 who are really probably the most interchangeable. At number 3, we have Edwin and Iseult from Truth Witch. Ah, damn. There are actually so many couples that I do ship in here, but I just, like, a lot of them aren't having scenes together really in this book, so I will link my review so you guys can like reference all of the things because it has been some time. But oh man, Edwin and Iseult have been on this list for every year that they've had a book out, and I just love them. This is also an enemies to lovers thing, but by this book they've become more like reluctant friends, kind of allies, still don't quite trust each other but maybe kind of do. And their dynamic is so good. Oh my god. Again, I talk about it more in the like review and the gush that I will post up above. But they give me so many feelings, and I can't wait to reread this book because there's so many like wonderful gems in here. But I have shipped this since the moment these characters came into contact. So the fact that I continue to get more and more goodness with them makes me so happy. But it's still so angsty, and I love it. Then at number 2, we have Evelyn and Celia from The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Evelyn is a bisexual woman and Celia is the woman that she is in love with for most of her life. They have a very tumultuous relationship. It is sad and real, and they struggle, and there's like all these ups and downs, and both their personalities at points make it really difficult, and they understand that, and this couple made me cry. Again, I felt like feelings deep in my own like chest and stomach from like what they were going through. Like I felt like when they were going through hard times, like I was going through a hard time with someone I was in love with, and it just was like, I felt it. Like I'm not experiencing it, but I'm experiencing it through them, and I just adored it. Like I again cried multiple times. There's multiple quotes from this book that I just love, and these two just rip at my heartstrings, and I really, again, want this to be a movie. I just want to see a lot of these couples like in the flesh loving each other. Then at number 1, we have Meher and Amun from Empire of Sand by Tasha Suri. These two. Again, didn't expect to love them so much, but also when I heard about this book, like people were talking about how great the romance was. And this is not a romance book, but the romance is an essential part of the plot, but it's woven into the plot. So like, even if you don't love romance, you probably still will like this. It's so freaking good. Like, these two are, again, enemies to reluctant friends to lovers. These two are forced together in a marriage bond and then have to like work through that. And the way that the marriage bond works in this world is like really a like deep magical bond. There's so much about it. There's so many lines in here. There's so many lines of like, what if we met under different circumstances, and just the trust that two people form through being together and trusting one another in a really deadly, horrible, traumatic situation. I love these two so much. I cried, I think, at least 3 times reading this because of these two. Like, I am just so deeply connected to them and to their relationship, and they're just like couple goals. Like, I know some of the couples on here I was like, I would never want to be like them, and I don't want to go through what they go through, but the type of like ride or die, there for each other, romantic, bonded wonderfulness that these two have, I cannot get over it. So I am very much looking forward to reading the second book, which is a companion series in this world, because there's probably a couple in there too that's going to be so good. I just adored them. So if you love desert fantasy with like a heavy romance plot, romance that doesn't take away from the story and is like an essential part of the story, things about like bonds and like all of that, read this because it's so good. So that is it for all of my favorite and least favorite couples of 2019. Comment down below, let me know your thoughts on couples, if there's any books that you'd recommend based on couples that I liked, or books you think I should avoid based on couples I didn't like. Let me know your thoughts. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see all of you guys soon. Bye.